Millions of laps that I've done around this place as a test driver back in the day. Oh, as Stroll goes wide.
Yeah, hello. How cool is that? Did you hear a little bit of that? Yeah, watching F1 TV Pro. There we go. If you haven't got it, get it from the f1.com website. It's going to cost you, I think, around about 600 Rand a year, or even less. I think it's quite amazing. It's brilliant. Being able to watch all of the free practice, testing from Barcelona over all of the days, all of the other insights from all the commentators as well. Although I must just say, sure, commentating for sort of 8-9 hours a day, not very easy. So much going on in the world of Formula One. Was ist das? Was ist das? Who's who in testing? We've got the coronavirus, which is very, very serious. We've got the cancelling of races. Mugello, Imola putting up their hands. We've got the F1 fan zone that's coming to South Africa. Okay, so let's start. I've also found out that if I touch this, sometimes it buzzes. So I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to keep my eyes on the screen here. Also, I've got my phone with me because I might get a message to do an interview with Jody Scheckter. And here's his car over here, by the way. And he's going to be here in South Africa, but more on that a little bit later. Okay, let's go back to 2019, testing at Barcelona. Do you remember that? Ferrari came out, they were blitzing every day, they were fastest. And we all believed that the times that we saw were pretty relative to each team. So what happened? We got to Melbourne, and Mercedes was 0.7 of a second ahead of everybody else, and we all went, so what is testing actually telling us? So what do we know from testing so far this year? We've had a full 3 days last week, and we're into the afternoon session of the second day today. What do we know? Nothing. Zero, zilch, nothing. Regardless of what you read, unless you have every single piece of data from every single team, with every fuel load, with every tire rotation, with tire temperatures, with tire pressures, we don't have a clue what's going on. It is nearly impossible to know what the teams are testing at what stage of the day. We do know that they do go on a little bit of long runs, and there we have to try and make sense of what they are doing. So we have to make sense, and looking back to 2019 gives us some kind of idea of the pecking order. Okay, let's start off with Mercedes. Man, is this team just unbelievable. Was ist das? Das. It is the dual axis steering component that they have added into the car. Okay, let's have a quick just look at it. Now you can see from this video that was put together by some very clever people, they are now telling us, look at the difference in the stability of the car. We cannot say that that is due to DAS. It's impossible to say that that's just up to DAS. What we can see with DAS and understand about the DAS system is that it's the steering wheel, and here is a steering wheel. So let's take a steering wheel. There we go. And the steering wheel sits like this, and then the driver, I'll do it this way, and the driver has the ability now to pull the steering out and push the steering in. Okay, and because of this, this allows this mechanism to adjust the toe of the tires. So you've got the tires over here, and they might come out of a corner, and they might be sort of angled like that, and by pushing the tires in, then it pushes the tires closer together. So it changes the sort of angle of the tires. Now this could have very significant effects. We don't know yet, but I mean, looking at Valtteri Bottas's times last week, Mercedes are just streets ahead of everybody else. So this system basically allows the tires to be in the straight position where they want them to be down the straights, so it gives them less drag. It'll make the car faster, and in the corners it allows them to turn the car in a little bit better. How significant it is going to be, we're not too sure. Is it a red herring? I don't know. I think all of the clever stuff is actually in the rear of the Mercedes car. And the question, so many people are saying, is it even legal? Now the FIA have banned this for 2021, but it is going to be allowed in 2020. And I mean, if we go back, I'm wearing my Braun shirt. If you remember back in 2009, they had the double diffuser. In 2008, the McLaren basically was a Ferrari car because of the Spygate and all of those kind of things. So innovation is massively important. You have to have this in Formula One. And Mercedes, are just so ahead of the pack. They just seem to have the time to work on all new innovative ideas. So, just brilliant. Red Bull Racing don't think it is legal because they think by adjusting the toe of the car, you're definitely adjusting the ride height. And that is illegal in terms of the sporting regulations. FIA have given it the go-ahead. So, they have asked for clarification. And also there's the story of Parc Fermé. Alan Permain from Renault has come out and said, and this is a quote from him, he says, James Allison and his men have done something clever, and undoubtedly they think there is plenty of lap time in it. I'm sure they've been through it thoroughly with Nicolas Tombasas from the FIA, and his guys are very happy that it is illegal. He did go on to say there's probably a Parc Fermé question over it, but I suspect the detail lies in whether it is a steering system or whether it is a suspension system. Let's let the technical guys work that out. Anyway, in the first week, Valtteri Bottas just blitzed the times. They did a 15.7. At the moment, Vettel, Ferrari have found a little bit of pace. They're in a 16.8. So still 1.1 seconds off the pace. Let's have a look at how the teams featured in the first week of testing in terms of how they improved over last year. Let's have a look at this. Now, as you can see, Mercedes have improved their time. Racing Point, we'll get to them, and Alfa Romeo, the only ones who actually improved their times. Everybody else was further down. Ferrari, 2 seconds off their own pace. Williams, vastly improved, and we'll get to those as well. So let's go through everything. Without a doubt, Mercedes are not taking their foot off the accelerator. They are supreme. They just can do no wrong, that's for sure. The other thing is Lewis Hamilton. I mean, is there anything this guy can't do? Check this out.
Just learning small things like I can play Adele.
Yep, look at him playing the piano as though he's Beethoven. Just amazing. Mercedes are streets ahead of everybody else. Make no doubt about it, everyone is going to be playing catch up. Let's look at Ferrari. Have they developed a stillborn car? After the first week of testing, everyone was saying they must be sandbagging, they must have issues. The media seems to think that that the team are very concerned about where they are at present. But is it true? Can it be true? I mean, Ferrari are not the kind of team that play the reverse psychology very, very well. They call it as it is. And if Binotto comes out and says, we are behind the 8 ball at the moment, we are not as fast as our competitors, you have to believe it. Yes, I don't believe they're 2 seconds off the pace. But I don't think they are close to being at a Mercedes pace at this stage. This is a problem because, as I've said in my last videos, you have to be able to compete at every single circuit. You can't just sit there and say, oh, well, we'll be quick here and we'll be quick there. And you might get 2 wins or 3 wins. Mercedes can compete at every circuit and they can win at every circuit. They haven't shown, yes, Ferrari, a low fuel soft run. We have seen a little bit of Sebastian Vettel today, but as I say, still 1.2 seconds off the pace. They cannot be happy with where they are. And I fear that Ferrari are pretty much behind Mercedes and Red Bull at this stage. Racing Point. Well, let's have a look a little bit at what Racing Point has been up to so far. Most people are saying that you got to call them Racing Point, and some people are saying just call it the pink Mercedes. Yep, it looks so similar to the Mercedes from last year and even from this year. It's quite uncanny. Don't forget, Racing Point have Mercedes engines, have Mercedes gearboxes, and do all of their development in the Mercedes wind tunnel. So some things are maybe going to happen. I don't know. However, the car looks extremely quick, And I do believe that there might be some protests from the likes of Red Bull, from the likes of Renault, who to come and sit there and say, listen, this is just a little bit too similar. It is against the regulations in order to copy somebody else's car or buy somebody else's chassis. I don't believe they bought the Mercedes chassis. However, the way that these two cars just look a little bit too similar to each other. Having said that, listen, let these guys go out and race. I think it could be quite exciting to see Racing Point mixing it up there with the likes of Red Bull and Ferrari and even Mercedes. I think it's brilliant. Red Bull and Honda, reliability is paramount for them achieving success this year. The Honda power unit is much improved, and I think it's incredibly fast, much more reliable. But they did have issues with both Red Bulls and the AlphaTauri last week in testing. So not everything is 100%. They are hoping not to have any engine penalties this year with the Honda power unit. And if they do, you've got to believe that it's really going to hamper them in their challenge for a title this year. All right, Renault, very difficult to read. I think it's a huge year for Renault. They have to justify their existence in Formula One. For a factory team with the amount of money that's going in it, to the world car market looking at electrification, Renault have to be able to sit there and go to their shareholders and say to them, hey, hold on a second, we have to be in Formula One. So that power unit has to deliver, but Renault as a team has to deliver as well. We've got Ricciardo, we've got Ocon, two very capable drivers. Hopefully they're not going to be bashing heads against each other. But looking at their times have been okay, but nothing special. But as mentioned, what do the times really mean? Melbourne will tell us, and perhaps the final day of testing tomorrow will give us an idea of maybe if the teams actually go for sort of qualifying kind of runs in Barcelona. Don't forget that the temperatures in Barcelona are going to be very, very different to the temperatures in Melbourne as well. So, how much can you read into what's going on? Okay. The Racing Point, I mean, I've spoken about them, lots of shenanigans going on over there. It's quite amazing. Merc gearbox, Merc engine, it's quite incredible. Let's move on to one of the other teams, AlphaTauri. To me, I think this car is beautiful. Two dynamic drivers in Danny Kvyat and, of course, Pierre Gasly. And in a way, they are now released from being Red Bull's poorer brother team, and they are sort of on their own. AlphaTauri, is a clothing company which is owned by Red Bull, but they sort of have their own independence now. The car doesn't have the Red Bull insignia on it. They are a team on their own, and I think they're going to do exceptionally well. Listen, they definitely win the look of the year, in my opinion. They could be the surprise of the year. McLaren. I've said it before, I'll say it many, many times. Since Andreas Seidel has joined the McLaren outfit, we've seen massive improvements. Adding to that, they've got James Key as a key technical director and a designer. You can only have success. Two superb drivers. Carlos Sainz already been his name being mentioned of maybe being a potential Ferrari driver in the future. So you've got Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, two terrific young drivers. McLaren on the up the whole way. Renault got to deliver them the power that they need. But I suppose all of a sudden they're scratching their heads as to why Racing Point all of a sudden looks exactly like Racing Point. I think in a way McLaren and Renault were sitting and saying we're going to be fighting it out for 4th and 5th place. Now all of a sudden they got Racing Point as well. Okay, Alfa Romeo, my favorite team in the whole world, was my favorite brand in the whole world. They look impressive in testing, but what does it mean? They started 2019 extremely well. Kimi Räikkönen, with all of his vast experience, managed to get them some serious points in the opening kind of races. But in typical Alfa Romeo and the history and Sauber fashion, just tapered off towards the end and was really struggling in the lower end of the midfield. So They've got more money now with Orlin and Robert Kubica joining part of the team as well. He's been doing some testing as well, was quickest yesterday for Alfa Romeo. So it seems as though they've got some speed, but are they showing too much of their hand already? You've got to hope that they've got enough money for future development and further development during 2020 in order for this team to look a lot better and finish maybe 6th or 7th in the championship. Also, vital year for Antonio Giovinazzi. He has to beat Kimi Raikkonen. If he does not beat Kimi Raikkonen, you have to question whether or not Giovinazzi should be in Formula One. I'm a massive Kimi fan and I want Kimi to do extremely well, but Kimi's also getting to that stage where, you know, he's got to make way for younger drivers. But you only make way for a younger driver if they're better than you or faster than you. I wouldn't say better, just faster. So, I must be honest, Giovinazzi has got it all to do. Okay, Haas, my first problem child. After the 2019 fiasco, remember with that sponsor that they have, and I'll never ever mention its name, they still don't have a major sponsor. And I find this peculiar for an American company with the backing of Gene Haas, everything about this team. They should have a major sponsor, and they need that because that's what they need the money in order to go and develop. Last year, Haas in Melbourne were sitting 4th and 5th, and 2 ridiculous pit stops put them out of the points. That could have geared them onto something very, very special. They need the money for the development. Believe you me, Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean are no slouches. They are 2 of the quickest drivers you will find. Can Haas give them a car that is competent and fast? That's Haas's job to do. The drivers can only do so much. Don't forget, the drivers last year were telling the engineers how the car should be going. And Grosjean was actually right. Eventually, they went to the 2018 spec car, and all of a sudden it worked. Or the Melbourne spec car of 2019, and it worked. So, do they have the right people? And are they really that committed? I fear it's going to be a very, very difficult year for the Haas team. Finally, Williams. So they made the first day of testing in 2020. I think that's terrific compared to 2019. But I'm sorry to say the car is not what you would expect from Williams. Yes, they came out and they did okay in their first parts of testing. But Claire Williams even came out and said, well, this is most of last year's car with a few added bits. Last year's car was horrendous. So why haven't they redesigned this car? This is what worries me about the Williams team. Nicholas Latifi has also come out and said there still are a lot of issues that they have with the car. George Russell says it does feel better than last year, and I don't know if he's just playing the PR game. I still fear they're going to be at the back with the likes of Haas. I think those 2 are going to be our problem children this year. Okay, so let's just make some buzzers over there, see if we can pick anything up. Sebastian Vettel, in terms of testing, so far the quickest today, a 1:69, but still way off the pace of Mercedes, and Bottas that he set last week at a 1:15.7, and I think he was on the medium or the intermediate compound, the C4. This was Vettel on the C5, which is the softest compound. Speaking of the tires, we have the intermediate and the wet tires. Here you can see them. And then, of course, in the dry, this is how you're going to signify them or determine what the cars are driving with. But going 200 miles an hour, I don't think you're going to see whether or not the red tire has a stripe on it or doesn't have a stripe on it. So I don't know how these guys think about these things. So those are the tires that we have for 2020 as well. Now, we're just going to have to wait until Melbourne. Let's talk about a couple of other very important things. The Chinese race, we know has been postponed and perhaps cancelled for 2020 because of the coronavirus, and the coronavirus spreading all over the world now. It hit Italy in the last few days. There were shutdowns at the Ferrari factory. Then it moved to Barcelona. People weren't sure that they were going to be testing in Barcelona. It is a pandemic, and it is a problem for everybody, and one can only feel desperate for the people and those who have lost their lives. Hopefully the world is able to contain it because, well, I suppose a little bit selfishly, it affects all of the sport in the world. Champions League gets affected, golf tournaments, tennis tournaments, Formula One races, everything gets affected by this, devastating virus that is around the world at the moment. Vietnam have come out and said that they are definitely going ahead, and don't forget they are just a week before the Chinese Grand Prix. It's fabulous. So, I think all of a sudden it's now bringing Formula One to the people. Here in South Africa, we have to pay for a premium package on our subscription channel, just about 1,000 Rand a month. Whereas this now, I think it's like 600 Rand a year for the whole thing. So well done to F1 TV. All right, the next thing is the Formula One Fan Festival, which is taking place on the 29th of March in South Africa through the streets of Sandton. It's going to be amazing. Tickets are only 60 Rand. I've had lots of people asking me, are there VIP tickets? Are there grandstand tickets? I have no other information besides the fact that tickets are 60 Rand. I know there will be lots more information that will come in the coming weeks, but do yourself, get your tickets. We've got Aston Martin, Red Bull, we've got Renault, and of course we've got AMG Mercedes. Plus, we've got Jody Scheckter and this magnificent Ferrari that's going to be there as well. Also, the final thing that I want to tell you is tomorrow, Netflix will release Drive to Survive Season 2. Claire Williams has come out and said this will give you the true story of what actually happened in 2019. I cannot wait to see what happened with Rich Energy. And of course, the German Grand Prix, I think, should be quite spectacular. If you don't have Netflix, try and get it. You can get a 7-day free Netflix subscription somewhere along the line. But Drive to Survive Season 1 brought the whole world a better understanding of how Formula One works. And it was incredible how many people afterwards just sat there and went, oh my word, this is the best sport in the world. We've known that for years, but now bringing it closer to the people. And you've got to say well done to Liberty for allowing this, and also the teams. This next series we should have.
Follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at F1 Success.